Well, it seems like every Monday we come back from the weekend and we're talking about a slew of deals that happened in the few days beforehand. We call it Merger Monday. So given it's Friday, we wanted to check in on what's happening on the M&A beat right now. We talked to the head of global M&A at Barclays. His name is Paul Parker. He's been doing this for over 25 years. He's brokered over $600 billion worth of mergers and acquisitions. So we asked him whether all this activity we've seen during the past quarter is going to continue.
I don't think so. I think we're actually moving from what obviously had been a crisis mode to a transitional mode where very big deals were happening as first movers were making their moves and taking advantage of the market, and then obviously you had a lot of restructuring activity going on. But the middle market of M&A was in effect missing. This year, and I think it's good news, one, for the economy, but also for the M&A market, deals between $1 and $5 billion are up 60% over last year in terms of actual numbers of deals. And I think that's a real telltale sign in terms of where the market is headed. And even those deals in the $5 to $10 billion range are up 20%, and the $10 to $25 billion range are up 25%. What's interesting, despite some of the bigger name transactions that have occurred, the blockbuster transactions above $25 billion are off 40%. So it really is the bread and butter M&A market that's come back.
But talk to me about valuations, because specifically with this takeout of Gymboree by Bain Capital, that $2 billion bid, a lot of investors I've talked to, particularly who are active in the consumer space, were a bit confused about that kind of valuation. The premium in the offer, 57% of the stock price pre-deal, 24% over closing price the day before. Do you think that there's a bit of a valuation bubble out there?
I don't. If you look at the numbers, it would indicate that we're still below historic averages. And if you look at the forward PEs over the last 10 and the averages for the last 20 years, as a market, we're still below those averages. And with the very inexpensive financing and so much cash on the balance sheet, which is dilutive for companies, you have a lot of structural reasons why people can pay a bit more than they would and still have it be a good transaction. Overall premia are actually slightly down from last year, and so in terms of premia paid over looking at 30 days averages and also a day before average. So we're not seeing a frothiness in the market. I think this is again, bread and butter, fairly steady paced market. It is up 15% over last year, and if you take out the financial rescues that were baked into the numbers last year, we're actually at a 25% increase over last year. So it's a very solid market, but we're not seeing frothiness. Obviously, any particular deal will have its own comparisons, but I think as a broader market, we're fine. Does
private equity just get more active, staring down the possibility of changes in tax structure? And also, talk to me about the structure of the deals themselves, because particularly the Gymboree one, the tender offer structure, a little bit unusual. Are we going to see more of that?
Well, I think there is a need and a desire to get certain transactions done prior to year end because of anticipated changes in the capital gains rates, which are meaningful. I mean, it has a meaningful impact in terms of proceeds actually pocketed. That said, you're running out of time. So we are working on a lot of sell-side transactions currently that are at various stages, and there is a very high sensitivity to the December 31 deadline to get deals signed up and closed. That said, financial sponsors activity is 12% of the overall market. 5 points of that is sell-side activity. So their buy-side activity is 7% of the overall M&A market, and 5 points of the sell-side.
We are just about 2 weeks away from midterm elections, and obviously that's going to greatly affect the legislative, regulatory, economic agenda of this country for the next 2 years' time and beyond. So we want to talk about just what is at stake with these elections just around the corner. This is going to be a special series all week long on InBusiness, so be sure to tune in. On Monday, we kick it off with the latest on the energy front and why what's happening out in California on November the 2nd may have greater implications for green energy in this country and around the world.